Anyway, as he weighs a 2024 presidential run, Ron DeSantis is calling on the United States to detangle itself from the war in Ukraine. In an answer to a Fox News questionnaire released this week, DeSantis said, quote, while the U.S. has many vital national interests, becoming further entangled in a territorial dispute between Ukraine and Russia is not one of them. He later accused the Biden administration of driving Russia into a de facto alliance with China and empowering Putin's war machine at America's expense. But back in 2015, when Obama was president, DeSantis had this to say, quote, we in the Congress have been urging the president. I've been to provide arms to Ukraine. They want to fight their good fight. They're not asking us to fight it for them. And the president has steadfastly refused. And I think that that's a mistake. That was back then. DeSantis is not alone in his current rhetoric. Here is some of what former President Donald Trump has said about the war, including his most recent comments where he suggested negotiating off a part of Ukraine to give it to Russia.
I could have negotiated. At worst, I could have made a deal to take over something. You know, there are certain areas that are Russian-speaking areas, frankly. But you could have worked a deal.
I was also the only president where Russia didn't take over a country during my term. Russia took over not because I got along with Vladimir Putin very well. I say, Vladimir, don't do it. You know, you and I are friends. Don't take over any countries because, you know, Moscow will be hit very hard, Vlad.
And there was a television screen, and I said, this is genius. Putin declares a big portion of the Ukraine. Putin declares it as independent. Oh, that's wonderful. So Putin is now saying it's independent, a large section of Ukraine. I said, how smart is that? And he's going to go in and be a peacekeeper. That's the strongest peace force. We could use that on our southern border. That's the strongest peace force I've ever seen. There were more army tanks than I've ever seen. They're going to keep peace all right. No, but think of it. Here's a guy who's very savvy. I know him very well, very, very well.
So, Joe, this starts, of course, with, once again, Donald Trump expressing kind words for Vladimir Putin. Yep. But I think there's something actually far more dangerous about this. This is now DeSantis with suggesting that this is deeming this war a territorial dispute between Ukraine and Russia instead of Russia invading Ukraine, suggesting that the Biden administration, the U.S., is too involved in that war and that we should pull back. That puts DeSantis where Trump is, and very different where most Republicans are, including others like Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, who are rumored to be running for president. So that means the two leading voices, because right now this is a two-man race, the two leading voices of the Republican Party are both saying the U.S. is too involved in that war. What does that do? That gives credence to Vladimir Putin's theory that time is on his side, that he can wait out this war. He can wait until the next presidential election. And if he continues to grind on, keeps the battle going through 2024, there's a pretty good chance that if a Republican is elected, that Republican, well, will back off and may as well let Putin take part of Ukraine.
Well, you just heard Donald Trump there. This is genius. It's wonderful talking about the invasion of Ukraine. We should do that. We could use that in America, Donald Trump says. Talks about how savvy he is. The Russians have now lost, 100,000, 200,000 troops. It's been the worst decision for Vladimir Putin, and not only in his reign, but probably he's going to be seen as a guy responsible for the complete collapse of Russia in time. But Katty Kay, this is dangerous, not just because of the message it sends to Vladimir Putin, where he says, well, all I need to do is try to interfere in the next American presidential election, help a Republican, DeSantis or Trump, get elected, and they're going to do my bidding for me. They're going to undercut NATO. They're going to do all the things that Trump did back when he was president. So it sends the wrong message to Ron DeSantis, but of course, the thing that really concerns me just as much or more, and I'm sure you as well, with all the diplomats and leaders I've spoken with over the past year, with all the generals, admirals, war strategists I've spoken to over the past year, the biggest concern is that our allies don't stand shoulder to shoulder with us. Leaders, European leaders telling me, sure, Biden's fine. We're doing great with Biden. America's back. But is America back for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? And then we get Donald Trump again. And now they see Ron DeSantis, who's the second most likely person to be president of the United States, other than perhaps Joe Biden. He's also talking about a retreat. He's not talking about leading from behind. Republicans trashed Barack Obama for saying that. Ron DeSantis is talking about something far worse. He's talking about trashing the international order. He's talking about dismissing a full-scale invasion of a sovereign European nation as a border dispute. This is so reckless. And I've got to think this morning, there's a lot of stuff that people talk about in American politics that don't make it across to Europe and across the world. This one does, because here's another example of the Republican Party just basically saying, to hell with it, we're going to throw in our lot with Vladimir Putin.
Yes, I mean, ever since the 2020 election, there's obviously been concerns in Europe that this could be a reprieve, that it was great to have Joe Biden, but Donald Trump could be back again. Now, especially with what Ron DeSantis is saying right now on Ukraine, there is a realization amongst European allies that even if Donald Trump is not the Republican candidate, it's likely to be Ron DeSantis, and therefore whoever is nominated on the Republican side is going to run as the anti-Ukraine war candidate. And you have to give the Republican candidate in a divided America a 49% chance of winning. You just have to do that because it's divided, it's chosen by such a small number of people. And that then makes Europeans think, well, hold on a second, if America is not going to be here beyond the 2024 election, or potentially not going to be here beyond the 2024 election if a Republican wins, do we really want to be committing all of those tanks quite as quickly as we were going to, or even looking at F-16s or our jets as quickly as we might have been going to? You know, an already anxious Europe gets even more anxious about its actual long-term commitments to Ukraine if America's not going to be there. Ukraine is now on America's political timetable. And that's a scary prospect if you're sitting in Kyiv.
It is a scary prospect. And how strange for those of us who grew up, followed foreign policy and the politics around in the United States, to now see that at the top of the Republican Party, Ronald Reagan's Republican Party, you actually have the Surrender Caucus leading the pack in those running for president of the United States. This is nothing like Republicans have seen over the past generation, over the past 40, 50 years. And as Jonathan Lemire said, I mean, this is it's just shocking coming from the Republican Party and the message it sends across the world. It's frightening, but we will continue to follow this.